We often begin our search for peace in the wrong places. We look for it in a change of scenery, thinking that if we just move to a quieter city or find a job with less stress, the turmoil inside us will simply evaporate. We look for it in other people, hoping that if a partner, a friend, or a family member would just act differently or agree with us, we would finally feel at ease. But time and time again, we are left disappointed because the external world is in a constant state of flux. The reality of existence is that we are navigating a storm that never truly stops. The winds of circumstance shift, the tides of fortune rise and fall, and the people around us are fighting their own battles, often acting in ways that have nothing to do with us but affect us deeply. The first and perhaps most difficult step toward genuine tranquility is the radical acceptance of the uncontrollable. This is not about giving up or resigning oneself to a bad situation. Rather, it is about recognition of where our power actually ends. Consider the anxiety that plagues so many of us. If we were to dissect our worries, we would find that the vast majority of them are tethered to things that have already happened, or things that have yet to come. We replay old conversations in our heads, wishing we had said something different, or we agonize over a future that hasn't been written yet, imagining worst-case scenarios that may never occur. In doing so, we are trying to solve problems with the tools of the mind, but these are problems that the mind was never meant to solve alone. You cannot argue with the past, and you cannot negotiate with a future that hasn't arrived. There is a profound freedom that comes the moment we stop trying to rewrite history. The past is a closed door. No amount of regret, guilt, or shame can change a single second of what has gone before. When we fight this truth, when we refuse to accept what has happened, we are essentially beating our heads against a brick wall, expecting the wall to turn into a door. The only thing that changes is us. We become bruised, exhausted, and bitter. Acceptance is the act of stepping away from that wall. It is looking at the events of our lives, the mistakes, the losses, the unexpected twists, and saying, "This is the reality." It is only when we stop arguing with reality that we can begin to work with it. From that place of acceptance, we can ask, given that this has happened, what is the best next step? But that question can only be asked from a place of calm, not from a place of resistance. Similarly, we exhaust ourselves trying to control the actions and emotions of those around us. We think, if they would just understand, if they would just listen, if they would just change, I would be okay. But this is a trap. We are responsible for our actions, our words, and our intentions. We are not responsible for how others receive them, nor are we responsible for the burdens they choose to carry. Everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle that you know nothing about. Their reactions are often filtered through their own pain, their own insecurities, and their own histories. When we let go of the need to control others, we let go of the heavy burden of being the puppeteer of the world. We allow people to be who they are, flaws and all, and we realize that their behavior is a reflection of their internal state, not a reflection of our worth. This is where the Serenity Prayer, in its universal wisdom, finds its relevance. The courage to change what I can, the serenity to accept what I cannot, and the wisdom to know the difference. That wisdom is the cornerstone of peace. It requires a deep, honest inventory of our lives. It asks us to look at our stressors and categorize them. Is this within my control? If the answer is yes, then we act, we put in the work. If the answer is no, then we must train ourselves to step back. This does not mean we become passive observers of our own lives. It means we become strategic. We direct our limited energy, our most precious resource, away from the voids that cannot be filled and toward the areas where we can actually make a difference. So often, our lack of peace is not caused by the events themselves, but by our refusal to meet life on its own terms. We suffer more in imagination than we do in reality. By accepting the uncontrollable, we reclaim our power. We are no longer victims of circumstance, floating helplessly in a sea of chaos. We become the captain of our own ship, steering not by trying to calm the ocean around us, but by adjusting our sails to the wind that is blowing. Peace is found the moment we drop the heavy baggage of what should have been, and pick up the lightness of what is. It is time to surrender the need to control the uncontrollable and find the strength to embrace the reality of the present moment. Once we have accepted the things we cannot change, we are faced with a new challenge. What do we do with the time that is right in front of us? We have established that the past is a closed door and the future is a distant horizon. Yet so often, we spend our lives inhabiting these two places exclusively. We physically sit in a chair, our feet touching the floor, our lungs breathing in air, but our minds are miles away. We are reliving a conversation from 5 years ago, or we are simulating a disaster that hasn't happened yet. In doing so, we miss the only thing that actually exists, the present moment. This is where the battle for peace is truly fought and won, because anxiety lives entirely in the future and regret is a permanent resident of the past. Peace, however, resides only in the now. This sounds like a simple concept, but in our modern world, it is perhaps the most difficult practice to maintain. We live in an age of constant distraction. We carry devices in our pockets that are designed to pull us out of the present moment and into a stream of endless information, comparison, and noise. We are rarely ever just here. We are eating a meal but watching a screen, missing the textures and the flavors. We are spending time with loved ones but checking our notifications, missing the connection in their eyes. We are essentially sleepwalking through our own lives, treating the present moment as nothing more than a bridge to get to the next thing and then the next. But if the present moment is just a bridge, we never actually arrive. We are always in transit. To find peace, we must stop treating the current moment as a waiting room and start treating it as the sanctuary it is meant to be. Cultivating presence requires a deliberate slowing down. It requires us to interrupt the autopilot mode that governs so much of our day. When was the last time you truly paid attention to your breath? It is the most fundamental sign of life, yet we go for hours without noticing it. By simply bringing our attention to the rhythm of our inhale and exhale, we anchor ourselves in the immediate reality. We send a signal to our nervous system that we are safe, that we are here, that there is no tiger chasing us and no immediate crisis to solve. This is the physiological root of mindfulness. It is not about emptying the mind of all thoughts. That is impossible, but about noticing where our mind has wandered off to, and gently, without judgment, bringing it back to the now. There is a profound power in this returning. Every time you notice your mind worrying about tomorrow, and you bring it back to the sensation of your feet on the ground, you are exercising a muscle of peace. Every time you catch yourself replaying an old embarrassment, and you choose instead to listen to the sound of the wind in the trees or the hum of the refrigerator, you are reclaiming your life. You are telling yourself that where you are right now is enough. You are breaking the habit of dissatisfaction. We are so conditioned to look for the next source of dopamine or the next big achievement that we forget that happiness is not a destination. It is a manner of traveling. It is a way of showing up for the life you have right now, rather than the life you wish you had. This presence also transforms the way we perceive the world around us. When we are truly present, our senses come alive. We notice the intricate details of creation that we usually overlook. We see the way the light hits a wall in the late afternoon. We hear the inflection in a friend's voice that betrays a hidden sadness we would have missed if we were distracted. When we are present, we become better listeners, better partners, and better human beings because we are actually there. We are not half engaged, planning our response while the other person is still speaking. We are giving the gift of our full attention, which is perhaps the rarest and most valuable commodity in the modern era. Furthermore, when we dwell in the future, we create problems that do not exist yet. We play out scenarios where we fail, where we are rejected, or where things go wrong. We suffer these imaginary tragedies in advance, often multiple times. But when we stay in the present, we realize that in this exact second, we are usually okay. In this second, you are breathing. In this second, you are safe. The overwhelming burden of what if is replaced by the manageable reality of what is. Life becomes a series of manageable moments rather than one giant, insurmountable mountain. To find peace, we must become friends with the present moment, even when it is uncomfortable. Sometimes the present moment is boring, or painful, or tedious. We try to escape it by reaching for our phones or numbing ourselves. But true peace includes the ability to sit with discomfort without trying to run away from it. It means acknowledging that right now, in this moment, I might be stressed, and that is okay. I don't need to fix it immediately. I just need to be with it. Ultimately, the present moment is the only place where life actually happens. It is the only place where we can love, where we can act, and where we can find God. The past is a memory trace, and the future is an imagination. Present is the point of contact with reality. By anchoring ourselves here, we stop leaking our energy into things we cannot control and start investing it in the richness of the experience that is unfolding right now. Peace is not found in the completion of the journey, but in the quality of each step along the way. True serenity is found the moment we fully inhabit the present, realizing it is the only time we ever truly possess. Once we have stopped fighting the world outside and learned to anchor ourselves in the present moment, we are often confronted with the most surprising obstacle of all, the war raging within our own hearts. It is a jarring realization to discover that even when our environment is calm and our schedule is clear, we can still feel a sense of internal agitation. This is because peace is not merely the absence of external noise. It is the silence of internal conflict. So often, we are our own worst enemies. We carry on a relentless internal dialogue, a running commentary of criticism, doubt, and harsh judgment that we would never dare direct at another human being. We scrutinize our every mistake, magnify our every flaw, and replay our embarrassments on an endless loop. Finding peace requires that we lay down the weapons we have pointed at our own hearts and reconcile with the person we actually are, rather than the person we think we should be. This internal conflict usually stems from a refusal to accept our own humanity. We live in a culture that idolizes perfection, leading us to believe that if we are not successful, attractive, and righteous at all times, we are somehow unworthy of love or rest. We create an image of our ideal self, a version that never makes mistakes, never feels fear, and never falters. And then we spend our lives comparing our messy, complicated reality to this impossible standard. The gap between who we are and who we think we should be creates a vacuum of shame. We punish ourselves for not being further along in our journey, for having past regrets, or for feeling emotions that we label as negative. But this is a battle that can never be won. You cannot shame yourself into being a better person. Contempt never leads to transformation, only compassion does. Reconciling with inner conflict means looking in the mirror and offering the same mercy we so easily extend to others. Think about how you respond to a friend who comes to you in tears, admitting they have failed. You don't list their shortcomings, you remind them of their strength, you tell them it will be okay, you offer them grace. Yet when we fail, we berate ourselves. We become our own prosecuting attorney, judge, and executioner all at once. To find peace, we must become our own best friend. We must learn to treat our wounds with gentleness rather than trying to beat them into submission. This is not about making excuses for bad behavior or ignoring the need for growth. It is about creating a safe internal environment where growth is actually possible. A plant cannot grow in soil that is constantly being uprooted by anger. Likewise, we cannot blossom in an environment of self-hatred. We must also learn to embrace the parts of ourselves that we have hidden away. We all have a shadow side, fears, jealousies, insecurities, and past mistakes that we are ashamed of. We spend so much energy trying to repress these things, locking them in the basement of our psyche, hoping they will just disappear. But they don't disappear, they fester. They leak out in the form of anxiety, projection, and sudden bursts of anger. True peace comes from integration. It is the courage to open the basement door, walk down the stairs, and say, "I see you. I accept that you are part of me, but you do not define me." When we stop running from these dark aspects, they lose their power over us. We realize that our flaws do not make us unlovable. They just make us human. Forgiveness is the ultimate tool in this reconciliation. We often understand the importance of forgiving those who have hurt us, yet we withhold that forgiveness from ourselves. We hold on to past errors as if punishing ourselves today will somehow undo the past. It won't. The past is dead, our self-punishment only kills our peace in the present. We must learn to say, "I made a mistake, it was painful, but I am sorry, and I choose to let it go." We must accept that our journey has been messy and nonlinear. Every scar we carry is evidence of a battle we survived, not a sign of weakness. When we look at our history through the lens of compassion, we see that even our wrong turns were necessary steps that brought us to where we are today. This process of self-reconciliation is deeply spiritual because it acknowledges that we are fragile beings created with limitations. We are not meant to be gods. We are meant to be learning, evolving, stumbling, and getting back up. Peace arrives the moment we drop the heavy burden of pretending to be perfect. It arrives when we can sit in silence with our own thoughts and not be afraid of what we might hear. It arrives when we realize that we are enough, not because of what we have achieved or how we look, but simply because we exist. The war within ends not when we conquer the self, but when we embrace it. As we draw these reflections together, we must confront one final and dangerous misconception about peace. We often treat peace as a destination, a promised land where we will eventually arrive if we just work hard enough, meditate long enough, or arrange our lives perfectly enough. We think of peace as a permanent state of bliss, a tropical island we reach where the storms of life can no longer touch us. We say things like, "I just want to find peace," as if it is a lost set of keys waiting to be discovered under a couch cushion. But this mindset sets us up for inevitable failure. The moment a crisis hits, the moment we lose our temper or feel a spike of anxiety, we think, "I've failed. I've lost my peace. I'm back at square one." This binary thinking, that we are either peaceful or chaotic, robs us of the joy of the journey. The truth is that finding peace is not about reaching a place where nothing bothers you. That place does not exist in this life. As long as we have hearts that beat and minds that think, we will feel sadness, we will encounter injustice, and we will face challenges. Peace is not the absence of these things, it is the ability to remain anchored amidst them. It is vital that we redefine peace not as a destination, but as a daily, moment-by-moment choice. It is a muscle that we exercise, not a trophy we put on a shelf. Every morning you wake up and you have to choose it again. Every time you receive bad news, you have to choose it again. Every time someone cuts you off in traffic or speaks unkindly to you, you are presented with a crossroads, the path of reaction or the path of response. This perspective changes everything. It frees us from the pressure of perfection. If we view peace as a static state, then any disruption feels like a catastrophe. But if we view peace as a practice, then disruption is just part of the workout. Think of a surfer on a wave. The surfer does not control the ocean. The waves will come, some small and gentle, others massive and terrifying. The surfer's peace is not found in stopping the waves or in waiting for the ocean to become a glassy pond. The surfer's peace is found in their balance, in their ability to ride the wave, to adjust their center of gravity, and to perhaps even tumble under the water and come right back up. The peace is in the resilience, not the stillness of the water. When we accept that peace is a choice, we take back our agency. We are no longer victims of our circumstances. We might not be able to control what happens to us, but we always have the final say in how we interpret it and how we carry it. We can choose to let a difficult situation harden us, or we can choose to let it soften us. We can choose to hold onto a grudge until it poisons us, or we can choose to let it go for the sake of our own serenity. This is the hardest work we will ever do because the world is constantly testing us. It is easy to be peaceful when you are sitting on a mountaintop. It is much harder to be peaceful when you are stuck in traffic, facing a deadline, or dealing with a rebellious child. That is precisely why those moments are the most important. This daily choice requires vigilance. It requires us to be the guardians of our own hearts. It means establishing boundaries that protect our tranquility. Sometimes choosing peace means saying no to a commitment that will drain us. Sometimes it means turning off the news that is feeding our fear. Sometimes it means walking away from an argument that serves no purpose other than to feed our ego. These are not passive acts. They are active, disciplined decisions to prioritize our internal state over the external chaos. We have to be willing to protect our peace like a fortress, not to shut the world out, but to ensure that when we do engage with the world, we are doing so from a place of fullness rather than depletion. Furthermore, understanding peace as a choice allows us to be compassionate with ourselves when we stumble. We will not choose peace every single time. We are human. We will snap, we will worry, and we will lose our cool. That is okay. The practice is not about being perfect. It is about the return. When you lose your balance, how quickly do you choose to come back to center? That is the measure of your progress. You didn't lose the game just because you missed one shot. You just pick up the ball and play again. In the same way, if you lose your peace for an hour or a day or a week, you can always choose it again in this very moment. Ultimately, we are not hunting for a treasure at the end of the map. The treasure is the map itself. It is the way we walk through our days. It is the intention we set when we open our eyes in the morning, and the gratitude we feel when we close them at night. We stop waiting for the storm to pass to realize that we have the strength to walk through it. We stop waiting for the world to become quiet to realize that we can cultivate quiet within. True peace is found when we stop looking for the world to change and realize that the power to transform our experience of life has been in our hands all along.